Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to review an Eric Clapton album which I don't think I've reviewed on my channel, and it's from 1976, and it's No Reason to Cry. And I've recently been getting into this album again, because the other day during a music session with my two sons I played them sign language and they'd never heard it before, which is a very interesting duet from Eric Clapton and Bob Dylan, written by Bob, that particular song. And this whole period is actually quite an interesting one for many reasons, which I'll come to. But this album sometimes gets overlooked, but it's got its highlights for sure. Released 27th of August 1976, got to number 8 in the UK, got to number 15 in the US. The album cover is Eric sitting at the Shangri-La bar and surrounded by drink, whiskey, beer. And I think this was fairly sort of accurate reflection of his life at the time. If you read Patti Clapton Harrison's book, she's quite honest about the alcoholism that Eric was going through during their marriage, and so it's no surprise. And a lot of musicians sort of came into the sessions and sort of helped create the party atmosphere. Here's the group shot here. I can't spot everyone in the picture, but I can. That's definitely Jamie Oldacre here in the white, and then Ronnie Wood in the red, and Yvonne Elliman and Marcy Levy are in the picture. Eric, and then we've got I think George Terry, Carl Radle. They can spot, and Dick Sims I think is in there, and Richard. This is one of the band members here down at the front. If I had to guess, Richard Manuel. I don't think it's Garth Hudson. No, it's Richard Manuel, I think. Anyway, and then this is the other side of the album sleeve. The album comes on the RSO Polydor label, and it rather annoyingly doesn't tell you who plays on which track, although it does tell you who wrote each track. Handwritten, not by Eric, I don't think. This is not Eric's handwriting, from what I can see. But a lot of involvement from the band, which is no bad thing. And they'd obviously played on the whole of Planet Waves from Bob Dylan a couple of years before this, to great effect. So it was recorded in Malibu and LA, a couple of studios in California. And it opens up with an absolutely beautiful ballad called Beautiful Thing, written by Richard Manuel and Rick Danko from the band, although Eric handles the lead vocal duties, and some lovely guitar on this. And I guess the band are all playing along. Here it's very pleasing musicianship-wise, and very nice sort of semi-lead vocal from Marcy Levy on the chorus. And that leads us into Carnival. Unfortunately, on my CD, I played it so often over the years. It's a very old press, and it starts skipping in the middle of the first few tracks on side one, which is annoying. But I suppose I could always listen to it on Spotify or dig out this vinyl and play it. But I normally listen to stuff on CD if it's to hand. But Carnival is a delightful track. Play it loud, got a great atmosphere. And Sign Language, well, it's maybe a minor gem in Bob's catalogue, but I think it's an overlooked one, and delightful guitar, very distinctive guitar from Robbie Robertson, those shimmering solos. And great joint lead vocal with Eric and Bob. I think it's unique. I don't think they've done it before or since. You speak to me in sign language as I'm eating a sandwich in a small cafe at 2:45, I guess, in the morning, 2:45 in the morning, knowing them. Anyway, it's a great track. Check it out if you don't know it. County Jail Blues is next, and it's a traditional blues song, or it's Alfred Fields arranged Eric Clapton. But unlike, when Eric covers blues songs, sometimes they can be a bit tiresome and overlong and a bit boring, but this one's not boring at all. It's absolutely brilliant. I've always loved this track. And then side one closes with All Our Pastimes, which is co-written with Eric by Eric and Rick Danko. And this is, an attempt at maybe having a commercial song or a single, but doesn't really come off. And interestingly, on the Just One Night live album, Albert Lee handles the joint lead vocal with Eric, but it doesn't improve it much. It's still a pretty dreary song, which is not what I can say about Hello Old Friend. I think it's absolutely delightful, written by Eric, open side 2, and unfortunately my CD is skipping during this one as well, so it's quite annoying. But lovely guitar line, and there's an interesting performance of this from Eric. I think it's from Old Grey Whistle Test on YouTube. Check it out. Double Trouble. This is one of those blues tracks I was referring to earlier, which is a bit boring. And it seems to be every album he releases, every album in the 70s he had a kind of, or the 80s, he had a token sort of blues workout, which probably reached its worst moment in with a track called Same Old Blues from Behind the Sun, which is absolutely terrible. This Double Trouble is at least listenable. But unfortunately, side 2 continues to go downhill with a kind of gospelish song written by Eric and Marcy Levy, or Levi, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, sorry. And Marcy, handles the lead vocals. But it's not particularly distinguished either way. Hungry is a better track written by Dick Sims and Marcy Levy. That's quite a good track. Play it loud and nice guitar at the end. Like it. Black Summer Rain. I was reading Patty's book, and it's was written while they were in some gorgeous Caribbean location, I think. I can't remember. Beautiful holiday island. And she was wondering why Eric took the inspiration of that gorgeous weather to write a song as depressing as Black Summer Rain. So it was quite interesting. But I like the instrumental passage towards the end, and it actually reminds me of the last track of the previous album. There's one in Every Crowd Opposites where there's a bit of a guitar sort of workout at the end. It reminded me of that. There's an extra track on the CD called Last Night, which is a kind of forgettable blues number. But now coming to the personnel, well, as I say, they don't tell you who plays on which track, but I think one can safely say that the band are all featured. They're all thanks on the back cover. Jesse Ed Davis, interesting, is on here. Jamie Oldacre on drums. Ron Wood. Dylan, of course. Yvonne and Marcy. Dick Sims. Billy Preston is credited on the back. Carl Radel. And interestingly, now tell me what you think, but Jeffrey Harrison is credited. Now, I thought nothing of this when I first bought the album, but having just reread Patty's book, Patty and Terry Doran, when they were discussing George, sort of, or and had company, and they didn't want to know that people to know they were discussing George, they referred to him as Jeffrey, and I thought that was quite amusing. So I'm wondering, because Patty was now married to Eric, so would have shared this story with Eric. And I was wondering whether George turned up to these sessions, although I'm not sure if he's on the album. But otherwise, who the hell is Jeffrey Harrison? So that's a sort of new puzzle to answer there. So this year, the 76 was a good one. Well, we just had Desire coming out in January, where apparently Clapton was at the sessions, and they were a bit cacophonous, and with 100 people, a bit like on this album. And Dylan eventually had to tell them all to go home, and just ended up with a core band of Scarlett Riviera and the drummer and the bassist, and Emmylou Harris on backing vocals and him. But the early sessions had a lot of musicians, and I think Clapton still is featured on Romance and Durango, which was the only song which survived from those cacophonous earlier sessions. And then we obviously had Dylan's Rolling Thunder tour, which is involved a similar amount of a huge amount of guest musicians over the period of which it ran, from sort of mid-75 to mid-76. You had all kinds of guests joining and sort of leaving and then joining again. Joni Mitchell decided to, such a good laugh, she'd just stay on the tour for a couple of months. So that's also of this period. And then, of course, the 1976 concert in November for the band, The Last Waltz, featured Eric Clapton doing a set towards the end with Further On Up the Road, and then he joins in with everyone during Forever Young. And that's a great concert which Bob Dylan sings, and the band, it's obviously a tribute to the band, and it's just a wonderful live concert. So that was November of this year, so quite a busy year, but quite alcohol fueled from what I can gather. Various stories have come out, you know, if you watch The Last Waltz, you can see everyone's sort of a bit out of it. And I have to say, on the negative side, this 76 was the year when Eric made those unfortunate remarks in a concert about black people, telling them to go home, and then he later would claim that he was drunk. But I don't think that's a good excuse. I think he was thoroughly out of order on that night, and hopefully he's reformed his perceptions, because he said later, it's a bit weird that I would say something like that, because I've worked with black musicians throughout my career, so it isn't, in fact, out of character for him to say that, but he said it, he did, and we mustn't forget it, and we could maybe forgive him for it if it was just an aberration, but it's a very unfortunate low point in his career, and he would take some years to recover his reputation after that. So this was No Reason to Cry from 1976. This is the back cover, quite interesting graphics with all the song titles, and I would say side one is excellent, and then side two starts off brilliantly with Hello Old Friend, and then goes downhill quite dramatically. So I don't think that's the only album which that's happened to with Eric Clapton. I think Slow Hand suffers from the same fate, off the top of my head, not all of them, but side one on here is considerably stronger, but you know, it's a good sort of feel to the album, and the good sort of spirit are all playing together with sort of good joie de vivre, even though too much drink and drugs is involved, no doubt. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.